Welcome back, everybody, to the Off Base Sports Podcast. I was just about to call it the old name. Don't worry, I caught myself, though. As always, I'm your host, Jason Critchlow, and after a couple episodes without him...
Todd's back.
Todd's back. I know. I feel bad for you all listening at home already.
Wait a minute.
It's your own fault, but...
I think you should have to do what NFL Network does. When you call San Diego Chargers instead of the LA Chargers, you got to put $1 in the bucket for yourself.
But I didn't call it the wrong thing.
I know. I just said just as a penalty going forward.
No, I'm not charging myself $1. I already spent enough money doing this. I don't need to charge myself $1 on top of that.
Yeah, but if you do that, you might be able to take a really nice vacation.
No, I'd just be able to pay some of my bills back. Might be a better idea than taking a really nice vacation. Although I'll probably take the vacation. I know me. I don't give a shit if I owe people money. If I owe money when I die, I win.
That's right.
So anyways, please subscribe, rate, review on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Amazon, CastBox, Satchel, Spotify. It's Off Base Sports. Or you can just search by my name, and then you can add me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and YouTube, where I also post the podcast at Jason Banicki, JasonBanicki. As I also created a Twitter and Instagram for the podcast, so those are Off Base Sports. It's technically Off Base Sports 1 on Twitter because somebody took Off Base Sports. But if you just type in Off Base Sports, trust me, you'll find me. You'll see the logo. You'll know it. You'll love it. I don't tweet that much, but what I tweet is pretty much all sports-centric.
Add me on Twitter, asshole. I have a Twitter, and I've asked for your friend, and you haven't added me.
I don't have a paywall or a block wall. Or is that my other Twitter? I have like three Twitter accounts.
Maybe that's why.
So that's why. The one Twitter account I'm not on much because it's like my very professional, very politically focused Twitter account. But yeah, I can check that later and add you on there if you're waiting to be accepted. I didn't think I had a block wall on that one either, though.
Oh.
I could be wrong.
Unless somebody else stole your name and I'm waiting for somebody else to approve me.
That would be particularly odd. But anyways, yes, so follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram, in addition to the Facebook page, which is Off Base Sports Podcast as well. And then share it with your friends, share it with your family. Annoy them like hell so we can get more and more people listening because, after all, that's the whole reason we do this. We do want people to listen. Whether they do or not, that's totally out of my hands. But the goal is to have people listen.
That's one of his goals. He just also likes to rant, too, and...
I mean, that's true. And being able to rant into the ether is always fun. I mean, at some point, somebody will listen back to these genius thoughts that flew out of my head and be like, yes, he was right. He was decades ahead of his time, but he was right. It'll be well worth it as I'm, I don't know.
I hold the NBA has you bugged down here because I have to give him credit. He said once they heard Joe Canola can get bought out and who's the other? Oh, Luol Deng was going to get bought out. He goes, how long until the Minnesota Timberwolves and Tibbs get a hold of him? Less than 2 days later. No, actually it was the same night. The NBA.com crap came out and they put that exact same article out there 2 hours after he got done saying it.
I'm breaking stories here, folks. So if nothing else, you can always tell people they're tuning in to break stories. And I'm in that vein of the NBA paying attention or eavesdropping. Here's an NBA theoretical I'm going to throw out there. Love playing with the NBA trade machine. Thank you, ESPN. It's one of the very few good things you do on your website, but the NBA trade machine is one. Now, let's say the Bulls play a little better than expected, but still not playoff capable yet out of the year. They see improvement out of Chris Dunn. They see Zach LaVine be decent. And the New Orleans Pelicans start out as hot garbage. They fall apart, and it's clear that Anthony Davis isn't going to come back. I'm going to throw out a hypothetical, and you tell me who says no. Anthony Davis, have to throw in Robin Lopez just to make the salaries work.
Okay.
Wendell Carter Jr., Bobby Portis, Chandler Hutchinson, and either 1 or 2 first-rounders. Okay. Who says no?
Okay, I have to first ask a question. Anthony Davis' contract is...
He's got through one more... He's got this season and the next 2019-2020. Then he has a player option for 2020-2021 that there's zero chance he picks up.
Neither one of them should, but the Bulls would.
Right. I mean, again, yeah, we know the Bulls aren't trading that much because they're going to say...
You said the draft pick. When you said that draft pick, the Bulls are out of it.
And again, you could even swap out Hutchinson for Denzel Valentine, because to me they're the same guy, other than Denzel Valentine was actually a little bit played against better competition in college. So I think he's going to ultimately be the better pro. But you might have a little more shine for Hutchinson just because he's a little younger.
You can't give up future assets. You know that's the Bulls' motto.
Yeah, but see, you have to try and trade 4 quarters for $1 every time in the NBA because you win with dollars. You don't win with a bunch of quarters.
Correct, but John Paxson and Gart Forman don't understand that.
I agree, and if some of that theoretical involved them being fired by then, I would say.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, it was interesting for me because I started, the Ringer always talks about, if he gets traded to the Celtics or what the Celtics could trade for him. I just thought, the Bulls have a lot of young pieces, and they could probably put together an interesting package that at least makes the Pelicans think,
Does Fred Hoiberg know how to use him, though?
Fred Hoiberg hasn't proved he knows how to use anybody in the NBA yet. And the fact that they think Zach LaVine's worth almost $80 million proves they have no goddamn idea how to build.
I'm not going to blame Fred Hoiberg for that one. I'm not, because I can't say Fred Hoiberg went in that room and said, let's keep him.
Yeah, but it probably contributed to him being kept. Because, they needed somebody to shoot and play with pace.
I think Fred Hoiberg's safer than Doofus up front.
No. First off, I don't think John Paxson's in any danger at all. I think Gar Forman's the one who's in some sort of danger. I think, one, because Paxson's just beloved in Chicago. And I think he's actually, when he was a GM, he did a halfway decent job. I think the key is they're already starting to lose patience with a rebuild that should take several years, and they're just trying to jump to the end. And it's like, there's no real way to do that unless you trade some assets for a superstar.
Could we keep Robin Lopez and trade Jabari Parker?
Too much money.
$10 million.
Jabari's 20.
I thought it was 20 for 2.
Oh no, 20 per year for 2. Yeah, they literally ate up the rest of the remaining cap space on Jabari Parker.
Reinsdorf, please listen. What are you doing?
But
stop watching baseball and at least pay somewhat attention to the basketball.
I will come be your GM tomorrow for a fraction of what you're paying Gar Forman. And I know that's what matters most to you. I will do it for a fraction.
Just give me what you're paying Fred Hoiberg.
No. I'll do it. I will do it for the low price of $250,000 plus playoff performance bonuses.
For the first 2 years?
Nope. I'll take a 5-year contract with that.
Okay.
Now I get $1 million per playoff series. We win.
Okay. I think that'd be good. That's a good contract. And actually, Reinsdorf might actually pay attention to that offer.
I think he would. A, because it's super cheap if we stay with the rebuild, which is what really needs to happen. And B, it really only makes him pay me around what an NBA GM would have to be paid if we win playoff series. And we'd have to win all 4 for me to really get to that level. So if he wins a championship, he's made more than enough money for me to have made that extra $4 million.
Yeah, he would.
So I think he'd be okay with that. I think that's a number that's like, look, you're doing such a big thing badly, consistently for the last decade plus. Let's try anything else.
Do you think he would ever get to a point like where the Cubs are at here? Theo, you just handle this, and you tell me what the checkbook needs to be, and let me go back to my job over here.
No, A, because the owner really didn't even do that thing over there. It's like, hey, Theo, do this. Crane Kearney, do this, and you tell him how much money we have to spend. And then Theo's like, well, I need a little bit more. And he's like, okay, we can do it this way. And they're like, okay. You really don't have an owner involved at all there, which is kind of like the Bulls and Reinsdorf, because he's not really involved either, except he doesn't have quality, competent people around.
I know, but I don't know if he has that middle guy that has the checkbook, so I figured he had to at least deal with you with the checkbook.
I mean, yeah. But again, in the NBA, you kind of have fixed numbers you have to spend. Yeah, I think your floor is 90% of the salary cap, and your maximum, is the salary cap plus whatever luxury tax, which we know is, Reinsdorf is very adverse to paying. So, I wouldn't have to worry too much about that. It's pretty close to the salary cap is the max I could spend. Even though he makes way more than most markets, but he just uses it to siphon off cash. Let's just be real. Hopefully someday someday soon I'll won a Powerball, invested my money wisely, and then have enough money to buy the Bulls when he croaks and make them the marquee NBA franchise they deserve to be.
Okay, Mark Cuban.
Hey, if you want it to happen, you have to put it out there in the universe first. Then you got to go out and hustle and grind and make it happen.
You want to rewind time when he wanted to buy the Bulls to begin with, Cuban.
Yeah, I'd be very happy with that, but what are you going to do? Can't win them all. Plus, Reinsdorf, again, has no intention of ever selling that team. Not while he's alive. It's too much cash he can siphon off for baseball and anything else he wants to do.
But he's not even spending money in baseball now.
No, but he will again when it comes time. He's never hesitated to spend money in baseball. I mean, within reason. He's never going to compete with like the Cubs payroll or the Dodgers or the Yankees or that. But
I mean, his normal is paying pitchers. He doesn't have any pitchers technically to pay for 2-3 years. So I mean, it's not like anybody else on the team's making tons of money. I know, was it Abreu at first base is making?
I think next year's his last year too. So.
Yeah.
And even then, his wasn't much, like 6 years, $36 million, something like that. $40 million.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
I mean, it wasn't even
big for a guy who'd never played a big league game.
Yeah,
but it's not astronomical at the end of 6 years.
And look at the rest of the team. I mean, if somebody's making $1 million, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, there's not a lot of high payroll on that team right now, but that's more just because they're in a rebuild cycle. Again, historically, he's shown more aptitude to spend money with the White Sox than he has ever with the Bulls.
Why do I have a picture of him Scrooge McDucking this one? He's siphoning money all that, putting it in a big dunk and just diving into it.
I mean, it's probably the most realistic thing that he does with his money is just squirrels it away in a money bin with gold coins so he can swim through it in the morning. Yeah, I could see Reinsdorf being that guy. No problem at all. But I don't want to hammer that home too much. Like I said, since you kind of went off to the side with NBA, I had that one saved aside. Not necessarily for today, but I had, at some point in the near future, I was going to throw that out there.
Well, I had to give you credit, even though I really hate giving you credit for things. You said that, and then I would go home and log on the internet, and it was right there.
Don't feel bad. You want to know? No, I constantly, mind-numbingly frustrating, tell people to listen to me, and they always think I'm a crazy person, and they think I'm just being angry and obnoxious, and I don't know what I'm talking about. And then I go out for dinner with my mom and my grandma and 2 different sets of my aunts and uncles last night. And while we're there, they do a trivia show, but it's more Family Feud style. So like they ask 100 people this and that, and then you get so many points based off the answer. So the question is, name a sequel that has name a movie that has too many sequels. And me and my one uncle and then everybody else, He keeps saying Star Wars. I say, no, people love Star Wars. I'm saying emphatically 100% Fast and the Furious. If there's any movie that's ever had way too many goddamn sequels, it's Fast and the Furious. And we spend almost the entire time discussing this, and then my mom finally just looks at everybody, just let him have his way. They put down my answer, and Star Wars was the third answer, so we would have gotten 3 points. I can't remember what was second for the life. Oh, Rocky, which was atrociously horrible. That was a terrible take, America. But of course, number 1 was Fast and the Furious. And they're like, well, of course, my mom's thought was, I'll never hear the end of it. So I'm like, no. You would have never heard the end of it if you hadn't used my answer. You used my answer. You listened once wisely. Didn't think I was being a raving lunatic, although I'm sure you thought that's what you thought. I was not being a raving lunatic. I was just telling you correctly what the answer was, and you listened, and we got points for it.
I know. I think Rocky did go one too many.
Yeah, but
it wasn't that many, but I think it did go.
I can
one.
make a case too, but
well, you just made it sound like it was so out of the mind that it would even be on the list.
Well, I just think if you're gonna pick the top 5, there are movies that have more unnecessary sequels than Rocky.
Yeah, you're probably right, but I don't need to see another one. I don't need to see Sylvester Stallone taking steroids to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then at 80 years old trying to knock somebody out.
No, I mean, that's why I'm glad they finally went to the Creed side of it. The Creed stuff has been really good. I can't wait for the next one. So I'm excited for that. Yeah, we didn't really get started where I wanted to start, but this works just fine. I think, though, we're going to debut a lot of new segments today. And this one may be a one-time segment, but I'm handing out my boss man my boss move of the week award to Vontae Davis, who went full on half baked today in the Bills Chargers game and went into the locker room, and at halftime it was just like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you're cool, fuck you, I retire at the halftime of the first NFL game of the season.
Well,
and let's not forget one key thing here. He had a fully guaranteed $5 million salary the minute he made the roster to start the season. So he was probably thinking about retirement all off season, but made sure he made the roster and at least played part of a game so he could get his fully guaranteed $5 million for the year.
Semi-right. I just read as we were getting on, he had a fully guaranteed $2 million contract. He had roster bonuses for each day he made it all on the team. And because he didn't play and he was DNA'd by the coach last week, he lost over $500,000. And then he played this week, that the person who sucked and he DNA'd him this week, and he's like, you cost me $500,000. Fuck you.
Yeah, as I said, I'd have to read the specifics. The one I read said it was just a $5 million roster, basically a $5 million fully guaranteed the minute he was on the roster for part of the season. So that's always hard to tell because you don't get like full printouts of NFL contracts.
But 2.5, he's still guaranteed a large sum of money, and as you said, he said, fuck you.
Not only that, I fully get it with a guy like him who's at the end of his career. Like, you went to Buffalo. You probably signed with Buffalo when they still had Tyrod Taylor. They were a surprise playoff team. They had, they've got some momentum. You're thinking with LaShawn McCoy and Sammy Watkins, if they bring him back, and add to the defense, we could probably be another surprise playoff team and maybe sneak back in through maybe even deeper into the playoffs. Don't think he thought they were winning a Super Bowl, but I think he thought he was signing with a team that would let him have fun and play well, and play meaningful games. Then they immediately, trade Tyrod Taylor in the offseason. Then they trade Cordy Glenn and a draft pick to move up so they could take Josh Allen. Then they play Nathan Peterman for some goddamn reason. I don't know why. I think we've all seen that he's just a garbage quarterback and has no business being on an NFL roster. Again, further proof for Colin Kaepernick that the NFL is colluding against him, that Nathan Peterman gets to be on an NFL roster and he does not.
And technically, he's still on the roster, which is still mind-blowing to me because he's played a full game and he's thrown, 6 interceptions? 7?
I don't know. It's a lot of interceptions in a very short period of time and doesn't have a track record that says he's going to bounce back. You can at least live with a Ben Roethlisberger 5-turnover game because he usually has one of those a year, and then he bounces back like he did today and throws for 3 touchdowns, run for a 4th, threw for over 400 yards, and the Pittsburgh defense was hot garbage, and their kicker also missed a field goal again and another extra point, and that was just on a theme of ongoing kicker issues. But again, then the Bills didn't bring in anybody to replace Sammy Watkins. Or actually, they traded him last year. Yeah. I take that back. I'm way off on the Sammy Watkins thing. But again, this was a team that was, when he probably signed with them, was closer to competing than they are now. And he just ended up in a situation where he's like, I don't want to...
They had a competent quarterback.
...deal with injuring myself and just the routine banging and bruises and inability to walk for a team that's going nowhere.
The only thing I disagree is that he's at the end of his career. He's only 30 years old. I know it's closer to the end, but he still had some good football left in him if he wanted it.
I mean, I was going to say, he had started to bounce around a little bit over the last couple of years. I don't know if he had much good football left in him, but I think he was hoping to have at least some, 1 or 2 more good years. And I just think he got to a situation where he's just like, I don't want to deal with this, and I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to deal with all of that either. So I don't blame him.
But please.
But speaking of people who won't be on rosters next week, besides Vontae Davis, I think we have a couple of more nominees for the not going to be on NFL rosters come week 3 list. The first one I'm going to nominate is Mr. Carlson from the Minnesota Vikings. Rookie kicker. Missed 3 field goals, including a game-winning field goal in overtime.
He missed 2 game-winning field goals. He missed one in regulation and the one in overtime.
Oh, did he miss one in regulation? Yes. I didn't know he missed one. I saw the touchdown and then the 2-point conversion go through. I wasn't watching that game because the Steelers were still playing. But then after the Steelers were done, then I switched over to that one and saw him miss the last one after Aaron Rodgers got sacked out of field goal range. Actually, he fumbled it once, to kind of the back end of field goal range, then got sacked completely out of field goal range.
I got to tell you what, he actually missed 3 game-winning field goals because he missed 2 in overtime, and then he missed the 1 in regulation. So, I mean, he did miss 2 in overtime, too. You were correct.
Yeah, as I said, I know he missed 2 in overtime. The one technically wasn't a game winner, though. I mean, it would have won the game, but it technically was not a game-winning kick at that time.
Yeah, it's because that was their first possession. Okay, yeah.
Correct. So, yeah, I didn't know about the one at the very end of regulation, but I knew he missed 3 kicks. I'd be updating that resume. Might be looking at grad school because as a rookie, when you miss 3 kicks in week 2, it's going to be hard for you to get more looks. There's a reason why a guy like Sebastian Janikowski keeps working, for all the headaches that he has and all the not give a damn about physical fitness he has, because he makes his kicks.
He cares about physical fitness.
Yeah, fitting his 12-pack into his gut when he goes home. What are you talking about, physical fitness?
It's just from the waist down. He doesn't need to worry about the waist up, so he just takes it. But his legs, he got enough to he can still kick the ball.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I'm not saying he doesn't take care of his legs. I'm just saying the next quarter mile that man runs might be the first quarter mile he ran in his life.
He was at Florida State. I'm going to guess he ran a quarter mile trying to get away from things.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. He did go to Free Shoes University after all. I'm sure he had to run from the police once or twice. He wasn't in terrible shape then. I mean, he still doubled for an offensive guard, but
he's not on our roster. When the opposing team was looking at their, who's that guy? Janikowski. He's not on the roster anywhere. Dude, he's the kicker. Okay.
Are you sure?
He looks like he played defensive lineman.
Robbie Gold playing anywhere yet this year?
Yeah, he's in San Francisco. He's their starting kicker.
Okay. I was going to say, I didn't know if he had latched on somewhere. I figured he had. But again, you're going to see some of these guys like that. I can't think of the name of the kicker in Cleveland.
Yeah, he gone too.
Kick a kick solo last week. It gets blocked, so you can't win. Miss an extra point and a field goal to win this week. Might update that resume as well, buddy. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong. The Browns have done the most Browns things to start this year, by the way. They end a losing streak by not winning. And then they have a chance to win. And, of course, they miss an extra point and a field goal late in the fourth quarter after leading and controlling most of that game, by the way. They led and controlled most of that game, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we are the Cleveland Browns. We got to do this right.
I got to kick Buffalo one more time. Tyrod Taylor looks good in Cleveland. I mean, he can't overcome the Cleveland screw-ups, but he's a capable quarterback.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt that Tyrod Taylor is a capable NFL quarterback. He's not a franchise guy, but unfortunately, there are not 32 franchise quarterbacks to go around. And when you just cast off a capable guy after you made the playoffs, it's a head-scratching decision to me. Like, you're not a team that's on the verge of competing for a Super Bowl. I get wanting to take a chance and try and find a franchise guy, but they're not there.
But, I mean, Josh Allen's sitting. I mean,
he played again this week.
Well, I get that. But your plan was to sit him and let Nathan Peterman play. You could have done that with Tyrod Taylor. That's exactly what Cleveland's doing with Tyrod Taylor.
I mean, again, yeah, and you would have been better off.
Yes.
Is this the NBA's version of tanking? Are they trying to get Nick Bosa? But at that point, I guess they would have kept playing Peterman.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen would never came in the game.
If you're sucking for Bosa, you gotta play Peterman. I don't know, but I was gonna say there's definitely going to be a couple extra unemployed guys in the NFL this week, and I would add Chris Boswell to that list if the Steelers didn't just give him a 5-year, $20 million extension. That's looking really bad really early. He'd been so consistent through the early part of his career, and now last week he misses a game winner. This week he misses another field goal. He misses an extra point. Sometimes when your confidence gets shook like that, it just doesn't come back either. It's like you can go to practice on Monday and practice all those field goals you missed over and over again like you did last week. Problem is it's not what next week's are. You've got to go back and practice your fundamentals and get back to whatever routine worked for you for your first 5 years in the league. It's what's going to work for you again. When you start trying things different because you missed one kick or have a bad game, that's when you start to get the yips, because now you're starting to get into your head that this is wrong and I need to fix this or this or this, or I got to compensate for this or this, and then it's just a one-time blip, but now it's become a permanent physical flaw or a mental block that creates a physical flaw that you can't fix.
Any more kickers? Be unemployed.
I mean, I didn't watch a ton of games, but those three came to mind pretty quick. So, usually that's a pretty excessive amount. And again, I don't see Boswell go anywhere because you don't give him $20 million and turn around and cut him. Although, it depends on how the contract was structured because the Steelers often do a good job of not offering too much guaranteed money to positions where they shouldn't keep them. Although, I will once again say, Shane Leckler is available, Pittsburgh. I tweeted this out earlier. You guys need to listen. The greatest punter of my lifetime is available. I should not be watching one of the worst punters of my lifetime out there right now. So bad, as Pat McAfee correctly pointed out, the Chiefs deployed 3 returners on one return just to cover how bad his punts could be. They had a short returner, a deep returner, and then a short shanked returner because that's how bad he sprays the football. And it worked well for them because the short returner got it and ran it back like 20 yards. Whereas the regular returner would have never got that and probably would have been a decent punt. But it's going to be a strategy more people employ against a guy who can't punt consistently. Because even if he did finally pin one inside the 1 yard line and we got a safety out of that, then he turns around right again after that and punts one right through the back of the end zone that didn't even touch down anywhere. It went through the back of the end zone. You're not a kickoff guy.
So, wait a minute. Being a Steelers fan, so this offseason, you could have had Shane Leckler and Sebastian Janikowski, and...
No, I think Janikowski was already in Seattle.
But he was a free agent. Same time, your guy was re-signing, and he was a free agent. So, I mean, technically, you could have at least contacted him.
Well, we had Boswell under contract still.
I thought you said that... Oh, he got an extension?
They gave him an extension.
Okay, I thought he was a free agent, and then he said, okay.
No, he was just just before the beginning of the season extension. Boy, that's not looking well. Mm-hmm. And that's from a front office that usually does a good job with contract extensions, although a lot of their stuff's not looking well right now. Like, Cam Hayward's great, but paying $10+ million to him and Stephen Tuitt, so 2 defensive ends, a 3-4 defense, not looking good when our secondary can't cover you or me.
Oh, I was thinking of those, your 2 favorite kickers. You could have been naked and jacking it in San Diego. You were so happy.
I would have been if the Steelers would have signed those 2. I loved Chris Boswell until this year, and yeah, I would have been I would have been doing all kinds of crazy things. Again, I would have been naked and jagged in San Diego.
Okay, I'm going to ask your followers if you understand that reference. Please put it in the comment section,
and then you'll be our favorite listeners if you get that. So please do. Yes, I shouldn't encourage that kind of behavior, but yes, please do.
Okay. If we're done with that, I have one in Tampa Bay. Does the Crab Man get his job back in the week?
No, he doesn't. Second off, you know what? I take that back. I do have 2 Boss Moves of the Week this week awards. I have 2 to give out because anybody who saw the Fitzman uses Fitzmagic and then uses Fitzmagic in the post game for the interview with his friggin' chains, that beard, his busted open shirt so you can see all his chest hair. That was definitely boss move number 2 for the week. So I guess I did have to give out 2 this week because Fitzmagic is real right now, and he's definitely not going to the bet. And they said as much when Famous Jameis got suspended that he wasn't guaranteed that starting job. Apparently they saw something in Fitzmagic none of the rest of us saw. Oh wait. They haven't had to deal with him for a full year yet, and forget that Fitzmagic,
runs out in 5 games.
Runs out at about November. Somehow that's his midnight for his magic fairy dust. But hey, if you want to ride it through September and October, and then go back to Jameis, who still won't do any better, go nuts. I also forgot there's one more unemployed person in the NFL this week I want to talk about. Josh Gordon.
Ooh,
homie. Hurts his hamstring on a photo shoot. Then shows up late to treatment. Then the Browns, who have stuck with him for 6 years.
Through the drugs.
Through all the drugs. Because in the immortal words of Stephen A. Smith, he couldn't stay off the weed. Which is going to look so terrible for the NFL one of these days. I do not know in this day and age why the NFL has not stopped testing for marijuana, but they do. And so through all of that, 6 years of missed games, missed seasons twice, missed most of a third season, and yet they stick with him. And then He hurts his hamstring on a photo shoot, shows up late to treatment. They're like, we're done. We are out of the Josh Gordon business finally. Like, really? Now? Almost, really? Like, I mean, I get it, but really? Now?
Did you get your email about that?
No, I didn't get an email.
They're looking for wide receivers now in Cleveland because the only thing got Jarvis Landry.
That makes that trade and signing look so much better, but he's not a number one guy. Jarvis Landry is still going to be Jarvis Landry. He's still going to be a slot guy.
Des Bryant, I know we offered you 1 year, $5 million before. Can we go 1 year, 10, 15?
I don't see that.
Please help.
Because Des Bryant's not a number one guy anymore either. If he was still that guy, he'd be in Dallas right now.
This is Cleveland. I understand that. This is Cleveland.
I mean, they have the money, so it's not an issue there. I don't know why eventually you just have to spend it. You can't roll it over forever and ever and ever. You're not a team like the Steelers who are perpetually up against the cap. So when a guy like Lev Bell sits out 2 games and gives you back $1.7 million towards next year's cap because then it rolls over, that's a big deal. And for the Browns, when you're going to roll over another $50 million, who cares what you paid Des Bryant for 1 year? No, I get it. I mean, in theory, there are a lot of teams that should be out there spending some money. Again, if I was the Colts, I'd be, hey, Josh Gordon, here's a 1 year, $20 million contract. Come play. I know that's not where he wants to go.
Yeah. But
for 1 year, $20 million, you go play with Andrew Luck.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, you're going to throw the ball and it's actually going to hit me in the hands. I don't have to Superman to get it.
It's like if I was the Colts, a couple more weeks if the Steelers keep struggling and Lev Bell doesn't report, like, how much to trade him to us? How many draft picks?
It'd be a first round. I think a first round and third round gets him.
I mean, 4 weeks in, I think you're going to get first round tops. I think if you're the Steelers, you're like...
Maybe it's a swap of third or something, but it's going to be 2 picks in there. And I said something else might be coming back.
I mean, it at least has to be a second for you to trade him, because if you just even sit and hang on to him all year, you get a guaranteed third rounder when he signs somewhere else.
Okay.
So you're not trading him for less than that. Yeah, so it has to be at least a second rounder. And yeah, I would say, again, because you got some of these teams that have $50, $60, $70 million in cap space. Like, now granted, he still couldn't get an extension from the Colts. The Colts could say, hey, give him an extra $1 million on his contract this year to pay for him. But also, if I'm Lev Bell, I said this last week. I said it before the season even started, and I'm saying it again. Steelers didn't run much today, so Connor's numbers didn't look the same because they were playing catch-up all day. But he looked really good catching the ball. And he had some real man runs in there. I'm talking a real man run for his 2-yard touchdown, where he trucked not 1, not 0, but 2 linebackers en route to that touchdown. You might want to get to camp before some more of the whispers of system running back keep popping out there. Particularly if you don't come back next week and the Steelers aren't playing from behind and Connor puts up another 100-yard game with another 5 catches and 30 or 40 yards and another touchdown or 2.
But that type of run's not Bell's run. He would have bounced out trying to get out to the outside. He would not have taken that hit.
Or he would have hesitated. I mean, he does run through some guys.
Oh, yeah, he does, but he's not going to drag guys like that.
No, I mean, they're different running backs.
Right.
But I think the thing you have to fear is people seeing a guy who was a third-round pick who wasn't as highly rated as you perform every bit as well as you in both aspects of the game and start to say, how much of that's the offensive line? Mm-hmm. Do I want to invest $30 to $40 million guaranteed if I don't have that offensive line?
Somebody will still do it. I mean, even with...
Maybe not $30 or $40 million. Because here's the thing you're going to get. Here's the thing I talked about before, and here's the thing that I'm going to talk about again, and I'm going to talk about going through. He cannot get an extra dollar this year.
Correct.
There's no more guaranteed money to be had, and every NFL team knows this.
Right.
And what they're seeing now is a guy who's not playing for his team. And he's not communicating with his teammates, so he's not looking like a team guy. So that's already going to look bad. If the running back who took your spot looks really good, then they're going to start to question how much of you are that line. Because if there's one thing NFL teams are going to be, it is risk averse to throw tens of millions of dollars a year at a running back. Even if you're the Colts,
I've got one.
The 49ers.
I was going to say I've got one team, the Niners.
But they've got a lot of money tied up in Jerick McKinnon. I don't think they're going to walk away from that, even if he's coming off that torn ACL this year.
I thought it was like a couple of years, $20 million. I know. I'm saying 20.
I think it was like 5 years, $20 million.
I mean, NFL terms, that's not a ton of money.
No, but I think that realistically, unless you're a franchise-altering running back, you're not going to get that. And I think the biggest problem he's going to face is, again, he's sitting out,
right?
Which looks really bad.
Right.
Like, these teams want to watch you play, and they're not going to, So let's say you sit out till week 10. Then you're going to have missed. Then the Steelers are going to sit you for another game because they can do that. At that point, they're just going to be like, you're not playing, and we're not paying you for it because there's no relationship to be saved at that point. So they're going to say, okay, we're good. We're going to save another $855,000 towards our next year's salary cap, and you'll sit there and wait. We're not going to rush you back like we did last year.
The contract's still out there because they pull it. He can go sign wherever he wants. So he's going to sign it. So he's going to get paid. When he shows up, he still gets his money. They might deactivate him, but he still gets paid.
But when he comes in, because he held out, they can hold him off the roster for 2 weeks and not pay him for one of those.
Okay.
So they do have that option, and if I was them, that's exactly what I would do.
Maybe he comes in at week 8 then. I mean, he's not. He knows the rules too. So.
If at this point you stay out till 10,
take to 2.
You get 2 more weeks. So you're only going to play 4 games at most, or 5, I guess, because you have 5 games at that point left. But you're only going to get paid for 5 paychecks or 6 paychecks, whatever it is. You're going to have left a ton of money. And that's the thing. That's the thing that his agent has not looked at. You're not making back up $10 million additional dollars. They keep talking about overuse and fear of these things and injury, but once you walk away as a running back from $10 million, there's not another $10 million to be made at the back end of your career.
I mean, I don't know who his agent is, but I mean, I heard him talk, and I'm sitting there like, dude, you're paying this man, and he pretty much said you're an asshole. Basically, we're saving ourselves for next year. He never said he was coming in.
Except he did say he was coming in.
He said he'd be there, so don't worry, guys.
Unless something drastically changed.
Nothing drastically changed. You weren't getting paid.
A 23-year-old running back got paid by his own team when he could get paid by his own team. But again, you got to remember, he's a lot younger than you are. He's 4 years younger than you are, which is an eternity in NFL running back years.
Yeah, but he does have a lot more injury history than Bell and more serious. Gurley did blow out the knee. I mean, he did blow out the knee in Georgia.
Right, but he bounced back from that, and that's not been an issue since.
Well, I get that.
Bell's missed games to injuries.
I'm not saying he hasn't missed.
Bell missed 2 years worth of playoffs due to injuries. Don't forget, teams will go back and look at that.
I mean,
they're going to look back at his drug suspensions and know that he's one more test away from missing 10 games. And they're going to look at the fact that they're going to look back at DeMarco Murray and remember how great he looked in Dallas and how bad he looked in Tennessee. And remember that running backs are as much, if more than anything, are products of their offensive line. You could be the best running back in the worst situation, and you're not going to be good.
You're talking about Zeke Elliott and how great he looked at first year, and since that offensive line's starting to
deteriorate,
now he can't run out of a paper bag.
Yeah, because if you don't have room, you don't have room. End of discussion. If you're Lev Bell and you go to the Colts because they offer you $40 million, you better hope it's very much significant guaranteed, because you could very well be out of there in 2 years with bad as their line is, because there's not going to be room for you to run.
Well, that's why I like my running back in Chicago, Jordan Howard. He's going to they're going to pay him. I mean, the Bears will pay him. I don't know what he'll get, but the Bears will pay him, and I'm going to say he's a better running back than the line provides, because my line has not been good in Chicago, and he still put up 2,000-yard seasons.
But a 1,000-yard season's not really a bellwether for a great year. I mean, I know it's something that used to be, but it's really not a bellwether.
I know, but when you're running behind a line that was Swiss cheese for 2 years, I mean, I'm giving him credit, but now that my line's starting to solidify a little bit more, getting better, okay, now you got to show it to me this year, too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily have any issue with that. And somehow we got all of the way here from Josh Gordon.
Yeah.
Which I really did want to kind of finish up. So obviously his 2 favorite teams are they're like, wait, how are we going? People listening are like, how do we end up back here? Anyways, I want to wrap up Josh Gordon, give out one of my last awards that I do plan on making a weekly award, hopefully, and then we'll get to headlines for y'all, because I know you'll have to listen to me rant and rave like a lunatic, and that's what I do at my best. But obviously he's named his 2 favorites as San Francisco and Dallas, both of those make sense in a way. They both have some cap space to spend. They both have young quarterbacks. They both have iffy lines at this point, which is, I think Dallas's will be better once they've got a couple guys hurt that I think when they come back that line will be better. So I could see that. Plus Dallas has a history of having the proper support system in place for guys like him, whether it was Des Bryant early in his career or when they had Pac-Man Jones. They don't necessarily bat 1,000 with dealing with problem players. Nate Newton, for anybody who might want to look that up. But they do a very good job, typically, of handling those kind of guys. San Francisco.
Wait. Typically, isn't Randy Gregory suspended again because he can't? Because he's having issues with the drugs.
It might be getting suspended. Might be. Keyword might. I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm just saying they have more of a history than other teams of dealing with that. Because clearly Cleveland has not figured out how to deal with off-the-field issues. See Manziel, Johnny, to go with Gordon, Josh. They don't do them well at all. So
I mean, I know
I can really see it. Again, I would throw the Colts in there just because they have the cap space, a need for a big playmaking wide receiver. And you get to play with Andrew Luck.
Okay. There's 4 teams looking for a wide receiver who have cap money. I'm going to give you the 4 quarterbacks. Which one do you take? You got San Francisco and Garoppolo. You got Dallas and Dak. You got Luck in Indianapolis. And you got Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay.
I mean, for me, it's always Aaron Rodgers. You're talking about one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. However, they're not going to bring in Josh Gordon in Green Bay. I can tell you that 100% emphatically certain it will not happen. They will not even look at him. Come on now. Mike McCarthy is not gambling on a Josh Gordon guy.
So you don't think if Aaron Rodgers walked into the GM's office and said, our wide receivers are struggling, Josh Gordon's out there, I want you to give him a chance?
Nope. Not a chance. Not that town. Not a chance. The other quarterbacks who might that way. Not that city. Not that coaching staff. Not a chance.
I thought they brought a few troubled people up to Green Bay and they well behaved because there was nothing to do in Green Bay.
No, I literally can't think of one ever.
I was thinking of the Favre crew and the stories you hear after the fact now.
Yeah, I was going to say, he never really behaved well, did he? He still drank all the time, popped pills, dick-picked everybody.
I'm talking about his people around. I mean, his players that he wanted on the team. Because Chumara doesn't sound... Now that you hear some of the stories, when they're out talking, and they're talking about Chumara, it does not sound like he's a very nice man at all.
I mean, there's always going to be some bad guys, but no, they're not taking a shot on Josh Gordon.
I forgot the 5th one. New England and Tom Brady. I forgot. There was a 5th one on my mind. I just couldn't think of it. Because, they keep recycling receivers every week and cutting and bringing in new ones.
Yeah, and I think, no. I just don't see it.
Okay.
No. I know what you're saying, and it makes a ton of sense, but I don't think he's the kind of wide receiver that would play well with Tom Brady. I think you have to have the right kind of guy, and I know what you're going to say, that if Randy Moss can do it, anybody should be able to do it, but I think...
Well, I wouldn't put Randy Moss and Gordon as the same type of wide receiver, so I'm trying to figure out what...
One of them is the greatest physical wide receiver to ever play the game. The most physical freak athlete ever to play wide receiver. But, I mean, Gordon's a big guy. He's a fast guy. He's a strong guy. But he's not a very good route runner. If there's one thing Tom Brady has to have, is guys who are good route runners.
Okay.
I was
thinking more of Brandon Cook stretch the field type of role.
Yeah, but again, he's not that kind of fast.
Okay.
He's more of a go up, jump ball, high point it. He is fast, but he's not like Brandon Cook fast. There's a different thing there. So I think that we'll put that to bed. And as I said, I wanted to give out one more award before we get to headlines. And I will try and put these clips up on YouTube or on the Instagram page, and maybe find a few every week and have nominees ahead of time. But it's going to be my Javy Baez Holy Shit Award, Holy Shit Moment of the Week Award. So it's going to be something sports related. Doesn't necessarily have to be Javy Baez per se, although I could almost always find one for him. Like the absolute terrible safety sacrifice bunt that somehow worked to be a game-winning bunt after he had already driven in 2 other runs with a double and a home run in that dumbass Thursday game against the Nationals. Or any of the defensive plays that he made this week that just made me go, holy shit. But Javy Baez is just one of those few guys in sports that will always have you going, holy shit, did you see that? So my first one is technically from the week 1 of the NFL, although it was from the late Monday night game, so I'm going to throw it in this week. And that is beast mode, going full beast mode, and taking 9 guys with him into the end zone. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, like 9 dudes he trucked on one leg. One guy was literally hanging onto one of his legs, and he's like, I don't give a shit. We're still going to score on this play. So that is my Javy Baez holy shit moment of the week.
And then John Gruden stopped giving him the football for whatever reason.
I mean, beast mode is like 35 years old, in like 50 in running back years. Still one of my favorite human beings of all time. But also shout out to Marcus Peters for doing the beast mode celebration on a touchdown in Oakland.
Being the opposing player.
But I mean, he is Oakland. I mean, Marcus Peters is beast mode's cousin.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I'll allow it. I thought it was pretty cool.
I agree. I mean, wasn't it a few years back when Oakland and Kansas City were fighting, and Peters and Beast Mode were beating up the wrong teammates? Or pulling and beat.
No, Beast Mode was pulling off Raiders off of Marcus Peters. Right. And then he got kicked out of that game and went up into the stands and watched it with the fans and then rode the train back home when he was in Oakland. Yeah, again, Marshawn Lynch, one of my absolute favorite human beings in the history of the world. If he's not one of your favorite human beings in the history of the world, you need to go watch more Marshawn Lynch YouTube videos because he's just that amazing of a person.
And by the way, one of the few people that could have got away with that too, Oakland just loves that man.
Well, because there is nobody that's more of the town than... Again, this is a guy who is a professional athlete who played in Buffalo, who played in Seattle, and yet every year would have cookouts in Oakland and block parties and shut the block down and have everybody and their mother come through, and just random ass people from the city were allowed to come through the barbecue. Like, oh, Snoop Dogg's performing? That's all right. Come on through. There was going to be no permit Becky in that situation.
There might have tried to be one.
Could have been.
Cops showed up and said, "Oh, it's Marshawn.
Come on, guys. We got to play for you. We got to play right here."
I think it topped it off for me when athletes are great physically. They take care of their bodies, and he's on the sidelines eating bags of Skittles.
By the way, this is... I'm stealing this from Pat McAfee's rant, although I think we've all seen the Skittles commercials, and we've all, but he nails it perfectly. Marshawn Lynch is one of those guys that is so Marshawn Lynch that anybody else in the world that, if they're gonna have you advertise for them, they're gonna write a script. They're going to be very marketed to how they want you to do. Not Skittles. They hand Marshawn Lynch Skittles, send him over to Scotland, and just record him. And what did they get? Pure gold. Got him talking with a kilt maker and other people's like, if Marshawn Lynch is not on one of your 10 most favorite human beings in the history of the world, that's how this dude is. Go watch more videos of him on YouTube, because again, the outrageous shit he has done and will continue to do would have went super viral if there was like this stuff, if Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook existed. Like, again, he stole the trainer's cart when he was at Cal and just was riding around the fields like a madman after a game one time. And his whole explanation was, I saw it and nobody was watching it and the keys were in it, so I went for it. Like,
I got one more to add to his legend.
One more?
Just one more. I'm just going to go with one more.
Forever talking about
I know you can, but it's got one more. This man has not stand for the national anthem for like 3, 4, 5 years since the last time he played, and nobody says anything to Marshawn Lynch about not standing.
That's because the Cheeto in Chief is more than willing to call out Kaepernick because he looks smaller and he's not so threatening and intimidating. Like, I ain't fucking with beast mode. That motherfucker will fuck me up. Also, by the way, to take that one step further, when the Raiders played their game in Mexico last year, he stood for the Mexican national anthem. And when asked why, he's like, well, because the Mexicans are our homies. We got some in the city and we hang with them all the time. Like, they're the homies. Like, Fair enough, Marshawn. You are correct.
The president's not even afraid of Marshawn Lynch fucking him up. He says something. Oakland might drive down to Washington, D.C. to fuck him up.
Like, you not allowed in California no more? What do you mean? I'm the president. You ain't allowed in California no more. Like, okay, I'm fine with that. I'll allow it. No, you're not allowing it. This is being enforced upon you. You remember your travel ban? Yeah, we got one against you now.
You remember the movie Escape from L.A. and Escape from New York? That's where you would be at, and you're not Snake.
Oh, Marshawn Lynch is an amazing human being. National treasure that we do not celebrate enough in this country. And that's why I'm glad that he gets to be my first Javy Baez Holy Shit Moment of the Week award winner. Can't be more proud of it. Like I said, hopefully later today I'll get a clip of that video and put it on Instagram. And that should lead us right into Todd's headline segment, where he, as always when he's here, will read me headlines that I've not at all seen. I am not at all prepped for what they are going to be, and you will get my unfiltered, complete surprise reaction, which will surprise me as well.
He stole my first one already, because we were going to talk about Le'Veon Bell. He kind of stole that one. There's no more else point to going to that one.
We can skip Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, we can skip that.
But, well, it was really a two-parter. So the first part we're not going to talk about, but the Steelers players talking about Bell's contract, violating the no-no, talking about other players' money.
Now, see, that's not true. And a few other sports writers have pointed this out, or talking heads, whatever you want to call them, because there's not many sports writers, that typically it is true that players will not talk about other players' money when they're negotiating a contract when they can get more money. But the problem is he can get no more money. There is no extension to be had at this point from the Steelers or anywhere he gets traded. There is no opportunity for him to sign a longer contract. There's no opportunity for him to get more money. So what they are seeing is the guy who's supposed to be ride or die with them on their track, trying to compete for a Super Bowl, who is instead saying, nope, I don't want to play this year because $14.5 million isn't good enough. Again, in the last 2 years, he's going to have almost $27 million guaranteed dollars. Some of which he's turning down now by giving back $855,000 per game. Like, how much more do you need? I get it. And again, I fully support players getting what they can get because the owners, again, way more wealthy than they are. But I understand what his teammates are saying when they're like, this isn't violating that clause. I'm not saying you shouldn't get an extension or you're not worth so much money, but at this point, you can't get any more. There's not another dollar to be earned. Come to work. You said all along you'd be here, and now you're not here.
So the old-time players who are making comments saying they're violating that are get off my lawn?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
They're talking out of their ass, because if it was them in that same situation, they'd be saying something as well to their teammate. Maybe more privately, but I think, again, this is year 2 where, A, he was offered 2 reasonable extensions 2 years in a row and turned them both down because he didn't like the way they were structured. That's too bad. You're a running back in the NFL. But I think there gets to be a point where they're just like, we're done.
But I guess what confuses me on that one still is they both sides kept saying, we're really there. I mean, we're there. What happened?
2 years ago, him and the Steelers and their agent thought they had a deal in place, and Le'Veon Nix did.
Even this year, they said the same, we were there. We're close. I mean, we were there. I mean, what was...
Le'Veon wants $30 to $40 million in signing bonus.
Was that the Gurley contract when that hit?
No, it was before.
I mean, I understand, but they said they were close at that point. And then when Gurley got signed,
Gurley didn't have until after his deadline was passed.
Okay, so what changed?
He wanted $30 or $40 million in the signing bonus.
Well, I understand.
Not going to happen at the running back position.
But he said they were close, which means they have to be somewhere close.
Well, they were close on years and total dollars.
Okay.
They couldn't get to the signing bonus number because the Steelers aren't going to hand out $30 to $40 million guaranteed to a running back who's one weed toke away from a year-long suspension.
Okay. I mean,
so to them, they're like, we have to protect ourselves. The only way to do that is to not give out a massing signing bonus. Now, again, he was going to have almost $30 million guaranteed in the first 2 years of the deal in salaries because you're just not cutting him that soon anyways. But he didn't view it that way. He wanted the big signing bonus.
Okay, I get it now. And when I think close, I'm thinking there's a few minor parts of this contract that we're going. That's not a minor one, so that I would not consider that being close.
Right. Fair enough.
All right. Next headline: Serena Williams argument with chair ump at U.S. Open causes her to lose.
First off,
well,
I'm addressing this now. It did not cause her to lose that goddamn tournament at all.
She was going to lose. I mean, she was being outplayed. So yes, but the points that she lost pushed it further. I mean,
it made it happen sooner.
Yeah.
It didn't change the outcome, but it did make it happen sooner. Was the ref wrong to take a game? 100%. Was she wrong to act like a spoiled, petulant child for getting called out for cheating? That usually doesn't happen. Yeah, she was wrong. So they were both wrong. This is a case where sometimes both individuals are wrong, and yet talking heads have to act like they have to act outraged because she's a woman and she got treated differently than men, which she did, and I agree. But she was wrong, too.
The first point I give you, the first point when they told her about her coach and everything, I get that. She lost a point on that one. But breaking the racket, I've watched millions of people break rackets and nobody get hit with a point on the racket part, too.
No, I agree. Again, but it was because she was trying to upstage the ref or the ump or whatever they call them as umps. I think
chair ump, yeah.
But so he took offense to it. Again, I think that we're in an age where, for some reason, these officials and umpires and all these sports try to start to think of themselves as more of the show than they are. And when he started getting shown up, he reacted very poorly. But it doesn't make her right. And there's too many people trying to say she's right and he's wrong. No, they are both wrong. It did not change the outcome of that tournament. And that's the biggest travesty is we're not talking about the person who won, whose name I can't even tell you, even though she is a young African from Asia.
Oh, okay.
So,
and she's about to sign a very large shoe deal, but we still, I understand the point. We don't know her name because of this other issue.
Because all we're talking about is this umpire and Serena Williams, and I get that it shouldn't have happened, but all she had to do was respond meaningfully in the first place, which she's never done. She's never been that person, and that could be a thing. Like, how many times has he umped for her and had to deal with her being a petulant child on the tennis courts? Like, I fully understand people will show me hundreds and hundreds of clips, and they will show me John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors and all these guys for years being equally petulant children. And again, the umpire was wrong. He should not have taken a full game.
I guess
never in a million years.
I guess my question also is, how come it seems to be at the U.S. Open and not at the other ones? I don't hear the other umpires at the other three large tennis events have that issue. I mean, is it they just don't say anything? I don't watch a ton of tennis, but it seems like when this happens, it happens at the U.S. Open.
I mean, it's happened elsewhere. Okay. It does. It takes the right player in the right situation, typically, because it's not just going to be, most players don't respond that negatively to the umpires. It's usually a handful over the course of history. And when they do, they become that person. And, of course, when they don't get penalized heavily younger in their career, then their behavior just continues to escalate. That's the biggest problem, is tennis is for years and years, and we're talking going back to the 70s with John McEnroe, ignored it and let it go and let it go. And I think this umpire just decided that he wasn't letting it go. And again, do I think if it was a man he would have behaved the same way? Absolutely not. So he is wrong. But so is she. And I think that's the thing everybody needs to remember. They were both wrong. Nobody is right. Yeah,
because I've seen the racket break multiple times, and I'm going to say 95% of the time the racket breaking is I'm just mad at myself and I break the racket. I get the nice verbal warning and we move on.
But typically it's also when the racket breaking happens, it's a single isolated incident of just breaking the racket. It's not following an immediate arguing match with the umpire. So it's usually not a staging up of the umpire. It's usually just, I hit a bad shot, I'm pissed, I'm going to break my racket.
Well, most of the time, yeah. But
99% of the time it is not based on an argument with the umpire.
Younger me was an Agassi fan, and he would break the racket if you look at him weird. So, if he was mad at the umpire, he'd break the racket so he was that type
But
of
he
player.
Never did it immediately after an argument with an umpire. That's the difference.
Okay.
She did it to show him up. Again, they were both wrong.
Yeah.
Technically, he executed within the rules, though. Like, he didn't step outside of the rules of tennis to create... These are allowable penalties by him. And again, she was going to lose. She was not going to win that tournament.
That was how the red line was written. Yes, she's being outplayed. So
because that's the narrative that's been adapted, is that this umpire took her took her victory from her. It's like, no. He took one game in one set after she got 6-2'd the first set and was getting handled on the court in this set.
I read the arguments, and what they're saying is during that game, the other player could have slipped, turned their ankle, and I mean that was the argument that they were going flimsy arguments.
But, they're playing that stupid slippery slope.
Yeah,
they're using logical fallacies to try and say, "Well, see, she could have." Like, no, she couldn't have.
All right, I think we've beaten that one, so I'm going to go with the next headline.
I'm fine with that.
Nike hires Kaepernick, but it's two separate lines. Actually, three separate lines. Trump says Nike's losing money. Stock market shoots up 54%. Highest ever Nike's ever been.
So this one, I think there's anybody who listens to this knows that I'm pro Kaepernick in this whole situation. I think that there's a lot of racist dog whistling going on around this argument. And I think it was hilarious to me when Trump tweeted about it, and the first couple of days Nike stock went down, and everybody on the far right's like, see, Nike made a terrible decision. See, all of us burning our Nikes is going to have a profound impact. And then 2 days later, their online sales, had shot up over 30%, and now their stock's the highest it's ever been, and it's teetering right there. And it wasn't a surprise to me. First off, Nike has built a brand over the years, whether that was Charles Barkley or Colin Kaepernick or any of these guys who are like, we're going to take a risk on the people we stand behind, the athletes. We're going to stand behind the athletes. We're going to stand behind a message, whether that's I'm not a role model or, sacrifice everything. Which, by the way, if you watch the whole ad, they beat those fucking racist hillbilly rednecks who hate Colin Kaepernick so much. They beat them into the ground with that whole ad because realistically, most of the ad focuses on the sacrifices that athletes make to be the very best they could be. Like, you don't reach that pinnacle without sacrificing everything or, focusing on that kind of aspect of it. It wasn't focusing on what Colin Kaepernick had to talk about, but they used him because he wasn't signed to Nike to do this ad. He has been signed to Nike since he was in the NFL. So they were using a resource they had, and they used it well to get a lot of attention for a lot less money than it normally would have taken them. And again, the people who were burning their Nikes are the people who buy the $60 white Air Max Nikes, the Weekend Warrior Dad Nikes, as I like to call them, for cutting the grass. And you know who they took the back of? Every young African American who wants to buy the next $300 to $500 pair of Jordans. That's who they took the back of. Yeah. And they also knew that they would get plenty of people who are tired of listening to Trump tweet NFL ratings are down because I'm forcing the NFL ratings down, or I can bully this company stock down by saying, well, they're doing bad. So they just finally hit a wall where enough people are like, we're over it. You're going to bully Nike. We're going to buy a bunch of it and make their stock more valuable. And again, they took a strategic stance that A, this was going to get us a lot of buzz and a lot of attention, which it did. B, we're going to take the backs of the people who actually spend the most money with us. And C, we don't give a fuck. We sell more shoes than anybody else in the world, period, end of discussion. And it doesn't even matter.
Well, I agree with everything that Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, LeBron James. Guess what? They all supported the ad.
Not only that, think about everything Tiger Woods went through in his golf career. Particularly, post-Thanksgiving club bashing. And all of the sponsors who dropped him. Like, almost every one of his sponsors dropped him. You know who didn't?
Nike.
You know why? Because they didn't give a fuck. They did not give one fuck what people thought. That has been Nike since the beginning of time. Is going to be Nike going forward. They are going to succeed or die, not giving a fuck what white people think about the decisions they make.
Point two, do you not think Phil Knight did his research before he did that? He's not became this billionaire man by doing stupid things and not looking at all aspects of it.
Well, again, like I said, I think it was all very strategic. This was their way of saying, if you want to be idiots and pay attention to 5 seconds of this ad and stop using our products, A, again, you're the person who buys the $60 Nike Air Max white ones that we don't make any money on, so we don't care. And B, this gives us a chance. Nike's never been afraid to have a voice in social issues.
Right.
It's not something they've shied away from, and they're like, yeah, we support what he's saying. that there are clear empirical differences in the way that white people and black people are treated by the police in this country. It's okay to admit that. It's okay to say that it's not most cops that do that. And it's okay to say we know it's a problem and we want to do better. It's who we should aspire to be. It's what I continually will take on this issue. Most cops are good cops, but there are bad cops out there, and there are cops that know there are good cops that know there are bad cops, and they themselves kind of bear some brunt for not calling them out. A scene this week in Baltimore in a federal trial of police officers and a drug and gun task force who got caught with their hands in the cookie jar, who got caught carrying fake guns around to plant on shooting victims. And one of the officers who was arrested with the exact toy replica of their duty weapon to carry that another officer who had turned on them said were the weapons they were carrying to plant.
Oh, wow.
This came out in open court in federal trial. So, yes, it is clear. It doesn't matter if it's white cops or black cops, because that's the funny thing, is people want to make this a white or black issue, and it's not just white cops against black cops. There are plenty of cops of Hispanic and black descent as well that treat minorities piss poorly because it is a culture in police departments. You know, in the 50s and the 60s as the KKK went away, a lot of those people realized if they went to police departments, they could have just as big of a profound of an impact and a generational impact because you set a tone. And again, the statistics bear out time and time again that minorities get pulled over for more than white people. They get sentenced far more harshly than white people. They get arrested far more than white people. Yet they commit crimes typically at the same proportion, other than like murder tends to be a little skewed, but that has a lot to do with socioeconomics and not about race. And it's one of those other things. Well, why aren't they talking about black on black crime? Nobody talks about white on white crime, yet by 85-90% of murders of white people are committed by other white people. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about white on white crime while we're at it. I get it, there are less white murders than black, but again, there are historical systematic oppressions that have led to disparate socioeconomic conditions that have led to those higher crime rates in minority communities than white communities. Mm. So if you want to have that larger discussion about things like redlining and Jim Crow and slavery, we can have those discussions because, you know, Jim Crow was only 50 years ago.
Right.
Redlining still kind of technically happens now, whether it's by force of law, you know, by policy or not. There's still essentially economic redlining. There's still basically chosen segregation in this country. You know, there's still, if you look at most neighborhoods, there's still a tipping point when there gets to be, you know, 3 to 4 black families in a neighborhood. White people run for the hills. You know, they fear that their property value is going to go down. So yeah, there are a ton of reasons why things are different. There are a lot of systematic reasons. There are a lot of old laws and old decisions that happen in this country. And yes, they're still true to this day that minorities are treated different by law enforcement and the legal system than whites. And Nike is like, we're willing to bet on this. We're willing to say that there are enough people who see this. We're willing to bet that, again, the people who spend the most money with us will support this message. And then we're willing to bet that some people who actually watch the ad and not the 3 seconds that Fox News is going to play for you are going to see, oh, this ad was about a lot more than Colin Kaepernick. Right. We just chose to use him to get a lot of extra eyeballs on us. Right. So, good decision, Nike.
And the people burning your Nike clothes, guess what? Nike didn't care. You already paid for that shit.
Not only that, as somebody, as the internet memes that I so blatantly love pointed out, you know, instead of burning your Nike gear, how about it you donate it to a homeless vet that you pretend to care about?
Yeah, I like that one. That was gonna be my second point, but all right, ready for the next one?
I'm ready for the next one because that one took a while.
Shohei Ohtani needs Tommy John surgery, but he'll decide later what he wants to do.
I'm okay with that because here's the thing: for him, do you want to sit out a whole year and get Tommy John and continue to be a pitcher and a hitter, or do you want to just keep playing? I mean, he's going to hit 20 home runs in part-time play this year.
Right.
Do you just say, I'm willing to not pitch for a while and see if I can play the field and hit and keep playing baseball, which is what he seems to enjoy. And then if there comes a time when the injury gets worse or I have another injury that's going to keep me out for a while, then maybe I sit down and have that surgery at the same time. and don't miss as much time from the field.
Can he play the field with that? I mean, I don't know. I mean, can he make the throws with that from the field, or is he going to continue being DH?
Yeah, as I say, that depends. Do you play him at DH? Do you play him at first base? Then he's probably okay. There have been people who played through ulnar collateral ligament damage in the field, but it's pretty rare. But typically for position players, the road back is also much faster because you're not throwing 100, 50 or 80, 100 times in a day. You're going to make 4 or 5 throws in the field a day, and they don't all have to be at maximum effort. So it gets to be that question. Some play through it, some choose to have the surgery. Because what's the second baseman for the Yankees that the Cubs traded for Chapman? That's going to Torres had it a couple years ago, and I mean he missed a full season still because it just takes some time to build back your strength. But he didn't have to miss any of the next season because he had it got injured during the early part of the season. Whereas with a pitcher, usually now you're getting closer to a year and a half on Tommy John. See Smiley, Drew for the Cubs, who basically won't pitch till next year because they're being extra cautious after he missed half of last season.
Okay, I think I got 4 quick ones, and the one that we can close off on.
You should have saved the Nike one for us to close on. I think that would have been the best. I think that was a walk off, but
okay,
we'll see when we get there because that's the nice part about it. I never know what's coming.
Thursday night football. I'm tired of it. 18-12 Eagles-Falcons game, first game of the year, and I had to sit there and watch that fucking shit.
Well, I don't have any issue with the very first Thursday night game, and I don't have issues with the Thanksgiving Thursday night games. Because you don't have the same issue with the first Thursday night games that you do with all the subsequent ones.
Right.
Because as Pat McAfee, I'm going to quote Pat McAfee a lot, because I've been listening a lot to the Pat McAfee Show 2.0. Now that he left Barstool Sports, I can actually listen to him again. Not a big fan of giving my money to those bucketheads up in Boston, although they sold the company, so now it's just another nameless corporation. So all you people who worship Barstool Sports just realize that you're just worshiping another nameless corporation. Kudos to you. But anyway, so I've been listening to the Pat McAfee Show 2.0. It's out there on iTunes and all the podcast places. It's great because Pat McAfee is definitely an entertaining individual. But as you pointed out, most of the time for players, Thursday for the full impact players is usually the first day they're being able to walk again.
Right.
After being, basically in car wrecks on Sunday. So that's why the games are so terrible. That's why the players hate it.
Right.
Because they're not healthy on Thursdays. I agree with them fully that we should not be playing football on Thursdays. Like I said, the first Thursday of the year, you don't have that issue. Thursday on Thanksgiving, that's just a different situation altogether.
Right.
I'm okay with that one because it's just a special occasion. That's it.
But even this Thursday night football, the one game, it sucked.
It's going to continue to suck because, again, the players are not healthy on Thursday.
I'm talking about the very first game.
Well, right, but that didn't have anything to do with it being on Thursday.
But
that had everything to do with a backup quarterback and the Falcons having an offensive coordinator who's clearly not capable of being an NFL offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian.
I know.
So that was that issue. You have a backup quarterback and a guy who shouldn't be an NFL coordinator.
All right. Next one. Detroit Tigers broadcasters fight over chair, get suspended for balance of year.
I feel like that was staged, just so they didn't have to.
That's where you're going.
Didn't have to watch the Detroit Tigers play the rest of the season. That's really it. I mean, even if it wasn't, it was probably more entertaining than anything those fans have had to watch all year. So kudos to them and good on you.
Canelo beats Triple G in close majority decision.
I still haven't got to see the fight, so I've only seen highlights and I've seen opinions. So I can't really say what I think about that till I watch the fight.
Triple G won the first one, correct?
No, the first one was a draw.
And this is now, from they're saying, was a close decision. Yep. It's building for the third one. That's my take of it.
I mean, sure. But again, I can't say if it was a right decision or a bad decision until I see the fight.
Okay.
So anybody who has a good YouTube link to it, let me know. Go ahead and watch all 12
Put it in the comments.
Just tweet it at me. It'll be fun.
Scott Frost, Nebraska 0-2. UCF still undefeated.
Yeah. I think this is just pretty simple. Nebraska, it's 2018 and nobody wants to play football in Nebraska. Like, let's just be honest. Nebraska is not a long-time, traditional, mystical place. You know, there are places like Notre Dame and Michigan that, even though they're in the north, or Ohio State, that have enough reputation to overcome bad weather and to overcome other circumstances. Nebraska doesn't have that. Nobody wants to go live in Nebraska. And I know there'll be people who tell me how cool of a city Lincoln is. It's a college town. I've lived in a college town. They're great when you're in college. They're fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But if you had options like Miami and Atlanta and LA at your doorstep, you know, don't get me wrong, Alabama gets players too, but I'm sure their payroll is pretty high, so it gets to be a little rough there. You know, they do get up against the salary cap every year. They spend heavily. You know, there are just gonna be certain cities that it's tough to get players into, and I think now again, where could he be in 3 or 4 years when he gets some of his own guys in? That's different. So it's always hard to say that first year when you're playing with other people's players. But I also just don't think Nebraska's on the road, no matter who their coach is, back to prominence.
Well, I'm going to put another line here because I seen something else, but I didn't include it. But basically how you were talking, I should have. Scott Frost now tweets out and tells the players, if you don't want to be here, I don't want you here.
Yeah, I always hate when coaches do that. Like, you're the person who came there. Not, you know, they're stuck. Even if you grant them waivers, they are still stuck there. But so don't do that. That's garbage human being stuff to me right there. I know you're trying to subtweet your players into playing harder or caring. They're not your players for the most part. Even the ones that you typically when you get brought in, you're salvaging a recruiting class. You're not going out and recruiting a whole new class from January to February.
Right. And
even more so with those new, earlier signing periods for even the football players and that. It's kind of tweaked that even more so for when coaches get fired and replaced. But no, that's just weak sauce all around. And again, I think Nebraska is starting to realize that maybe we were a little harsh on Bo Pelini when 9-3 seemed bad. And like, oh wait, maybe that was as good as we're going to do in this era of college football.
Okay, you didn't talk about the second half. Can you talk at least a little about UCF still being undefeated? I
mean, let's get farther into the season. But I will say the one garbage take I've seen regarding them in the college football playoff. Well, if they're undefeated for 2 years in a row, then they deserve to be in the college football playoff. Maybe. Like, technically that's supposed to be a one-year thing. It's not a legacy reward.
Right.
So why should they have to cost above a bar that no other team has to do? Alabama doesn't have to be undefeated to any season. They don't even have to win their conference any year, particularly to make
have 2 losses.
But they can. I've seen them lose the conference championship game, or the game before, and then still get to play in the championship game after they've lost their last game at home, by the way, and rematch against the team that beat them at home. It was like, so I always put question marks next to a few of the Saban national championships at Alabama. You're going to have to take over for a minute. I got to get some drink.
All right. Well, the other part of that is I do find it technically funny that Nebraska's Texans should be 0-3 because they started a football game with, I can't remember who it was, and had to pay that school $1 million for coming in, and the game never really got started because it got canceled after the first 2 minutes of the game.
Oh, the one where they had a bunch of lightning and storms? Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they'd have lost that one. I think they would have been okay there. But, I mean, again, I don't like that small schools get this artificial bar. Like, you have to be great 2 years in a row. Like, no. If you're 12-0, there's no other undefeated teams in the country, they should be there. This is the problem with making it such a subjective criteria instead of objective criteria to get in there. It's why it's not a playoff game. It's a +1 system.
Right.
Don't call it what it's not. It's not a college football playoff. It's a +1. You get the top 4 teams and a extra game to sort it out. So now you're arguing over who's 5th. What it should be is 12 teams. Your top 4 get buys. You got all 10 conference championships in. So the Power 5 and then the second 5. And 2 at-large spots. That's it. 2 at-large.
Well, because we're on this, and I just want to add Florida State, Willie Taggart, 1-2, and almost was 0-3, losing also really close to Stamford. I said that real slow because I don't want you to think I said Stanford.
Yeah. I'm well aware that they almost lost to 1AA Stanford. Although they don't call it 1AA anymore, I'm calling it 1AA because that's who they are. I'm not calling it the championship subdivision because that conflates things because there's like 3 championship subdivisions.
I just want to say, it's not always greener on the other side. Maybe you should have stayed at UCF. Maybe you should have stayed in Oregon.
I was going to say, that's always the tough part is these coaches are always going to jump for the bigger payday. And I understand when a guy like Willie Taggart wants to go to Florida State. A, we all know it's just easier to recruit in Florida than it is Oregon. B, he is clear, again, first year takes on head coaches are always tough because they're not their players in their system. And college coaches do not bend their system for players. It's mind-numbing to me. But again, they don't have their people in their system. And Florida State really wasn't that good last year under Jimbo Fisher either.
I mean, is that another reason why maybe Jimbo left? Because he knew the cupboard wasn't stocked?
Yeah, I think so. I legitimately think that's an issue. And I think Texas A&M's going to have some questions about Jimbo Fisher in the long run. Because, again, he's got his one quote-unquote national championship with a rapist quarterback. So are you willing to live through that to get you a national championship? State of Texas, that might be dangerous territory after what Baylor's gone through recently.
All right. Well, I'm going to end it with this one because this was the most shocking one to me. Outside of the Kaepernick topic, Paul Pierce calls Warriors starting 5 greatest starting 5 ever.
If you could give me a DeMarcus Cousins without an Achilles tear, he's right. Who are you putting a starting 5 above that? So if I run out a starting 5 of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and DeMarcus Cousins, name me a team, any team, that has had 5 all-star starters.
I'm going to have to say Lakers and Celtics in the 80s. I don't know if they had a complete 5, but they were close.
Most of those were 3. Sometimes 4. But never.
But DeMarcus Cousins isn't 100% healthy either, so you can't. I mean, if you're going to say that, you got to take the DeMarcus Cousins as is. You can't say 100% healthy.
Well, and I think that's the problem. And I think is everybody who makes that take is saying it because they're viewing him as getting back at 100%. Nobody has come back from an Achilles tear 100%. And everybody's like, well, Kobe came back. Kobe wasn't the same after his Achilles tear either. Let's not pretend. Let's not act like he came back at 100%. He was already at the end of his career, so the diminished, I think, got blamed more on him being at the end of his career than coming back from his Achilles tear. And I think they're wrong. I think he probably had 4 or 5 more years without that Achilles tear. So, I mean, again, if we get a really healthy DeMarcus Cousins, then yeah, by far, there's never been a team that's been as skilled as a starting 5 as that. Because even if you look at those Lakers or Celtics teams, I mean, even now with the Achilles tear, DeMarcus Cousins was in the gym one day shooting from 3 and just knocking like 40 of them down in a row.
I guess I got a question. What about his own team with him, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Rondo, and I can't think of the other person, but maybe
Kendrick Perkins? Yeah, no.
Okay.
Even Achilles torn DeMarcus Cousins is above.
I was putting Kevin Garnett as a center because that's where he played most of his career.
But yeah, that lineup, they ran Perkins out there at center almost.
Okay.
Every
Playoff
game.
But you said I'm just trying to think, and I'm just like, but yeah, I would give DeMarcus Cousins because I said I forgot about Kendrick Perkins. But I was just thinking the Lakers and Celtics teams of the '80s.
I mean, yeah, you're talking some good squads there when you're talking Magic and Worthy and Kareem, and when you're talking Bird and McHale and Parrish.
You also have Walton on one of them teams.
Any version of Walton that was on either of those teams, and if it was the Lakers, was a bad version of it. Like, this was post broken foots, barely hanging on to his career. Again, that was sub DeMarcus Cousins, because he was just such at the end of his career age-wise, too. But, you know, you had Danny Ainge and Byron Scott, I guess, or not.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think I'm right there. But I mean, again, sub-all-star guys, though.
He just made it sound like there was no team that could come close. And it was like, you know what? Pump your brakes a little bit. I at least could put teams in an argument. That's why I'm going with. There's at least teams in an argument rather than, this is the great 5 ever, that's it, no more conversation, stop.
I mean, but that's just a byproduct of the hot take culture in media in general, where everybody's like, okay, gotta have the hottest, freshest take. This is always the greatest of all time. This is the best thing I've ever seen. nobody puts any rationale or context to anything they say anymore. It's really, really somewhat annoying because we're all smart enough to know that not everything we're seeing now is the greatest we've ever seen.
No,
it's not.
I'm not even still Curry's the greatest 3-point shooter I've ever seen. Because I'd prefer to see him, Ray Allen, and Reggie Miller sitting in a court shooting. And I don't think Steph Curry ends up 1 or 2.
I think he wins that.
I'd like to see it. I just like to see it.
No, because here's the thing, and I can't remember who said it, so I can't give. Oh, it was Punch Drunk Sports. So it was Sam Tripoli and Jason Tebow, and they talk about this all the time. Nothing against guys like Ray Allen and Reggie Miller, or even guys like Larry Bird, who spent hundreds of thousands of hours on their own shooting and learning to be better. But Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are country club kids. And by that, their country club was NBA basketball courts from the time they were born. They've had the best coaching on shooting their entire life. They didn't go to a playground and learn how to shoot a basketball. These guys were in NBA gyms with NBA coaches from the time they could shoot. So they didn't have to fix bad form. They didn't have to learn kinks. It's why they shoot better than anybody you've ever seen. It's why I would love to be able to draft Bronny James tomorrow for the Bulls. Because the coaching and stuff that he's had access to. If you have the desire to be great, you have access to coaching that some of the best athletes in the world can't touch from a very early age. But you also have the other side of that, where there are plenty of kids who had access to that kind of coaching who just didn't care enough, who didn't have the desire to be that great. So you put two guys who had access to the best coaching in the world and then had the desire to put in the work.
Okay.
So I love Jesus Shuttlesworth. Yeah. I don't think I have to defend my love of Jesus Shuttlesworth to anybody.
Yeah, I have to apologize for that. I used his off name twice and caused you to do it once.
You used his Christian name. It was just uncalled for. But I'm okay with that. But again, they were great. Again, you're talking... what I'd love to see in their prime competition between Steph Curry and LeBron and Reggie and Ray Allen, I'd pay a whole lot of money to be able to see that.
LeBron?
Or Larry Bird.
Okay, I was going to say, LeBron's not
LeBron. I'm sorry. Ugh. Fatiguing out a little bit here. I'm getting a little tired. But, so yeah, Larry Bird, Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, and Steph Curry. I would pay a really high number to watch those four in their prime have a 3-point shooting contest. But it's never going to happen. Right. It's always the problem with, as I say, the greatest of all time discussions and that. But, yeah, I think it's fair to say that Steph Curry is easily the greatest 3-point shooter because he just had both. He wanted to be good enough and had access to shooting coaches that nobody else did.
Well, that's headlines because I'm out of headlines.
All right, I think that's going to wrap it up. I think we went pretty good, probably close to an hour and a half today. So as you can tell, there was a little built up. Plus, it was just a lot going on in sports this week. So please subscribe, rate, and review to the Off Base Sports podcast. I don't feel like we were too off base today, though. Feel a little sad for that. Don't worry, I'm sure that we'll make up for it soon enough. We're on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Castbox, Satchel, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, just to name a few. You could also just say, hey, Alexa, play Off Base Sports, and it'll do it. You can add us on, we have the Instagram page and Twitter, Off Base Sports on Instagram, Off Base Sports 1 on Twitter, Off Base Sports Podcast on Facebook. I also put the podcast up on my YouTube channel. You can add me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and YouTube at JASONBANICKI. And we will talk to you guys next week.
Bye.